Live.
Welcome to the August 27th meeting of the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. If staff could take the roll call, please.
Juan,
Present.
Kroom,
Present.
Kruger,
Here.
Mahanas,
Here.
Mayor Stevens,
Here.
Ballline,
Here.
Clark, Hackney,
Here.
Levinson, and Smith.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum. We have the agenda as presented by staff. I'll make a motion to approve the agenda. Are there seconded by Mayor Stevens? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? The agenda is passed unanimously. We have our minutes from the July 9th meeting. I'll move to approve the minutes as presented and ask for a second.
Second.
It's been seconded by Mayor Stevens. All those in support say aye.
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 Any opposed? The minutes from the July 9th meeting are approved. We also have the minutes from the July 15th meeting. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented and ask for a second.
Second.
Second by Mayor Stevens. All those in favor of adopting the minutes from the July 15th meeting say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the minutes from the July 15th meeting are adopted. I will offer a motion with regard to public comment pursuant to MCL 15.263, allowing the public to speak for a 5-minute period and ask for a second.
Or Luke Hackney.
Luke Hackney supports. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Public comment will be for 5 minutes. We have written communications, items 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, emails from Mr. Monsma and from Alice Drager. Members will take note. And at this point, I will open up the public comment section of the meeting and ask if there's anyone that wishes to address the Brownfield Authority.
We have 9 attendees. I believe the majority of them are for the upcoming business agenda item, but I will unmute them.
Okay.
Benjamin McGuire, you have 5 minutes to speak, or if you're here for a business item later on the agenda, you can say pass.
Good afternoon. I am here for the upcoming business agenda item, so I will pass my time now.
Thank you. Bill Roche, you will be given 5 minutes to speak. If you would like to pass, because you're here for a later business agenda item, you can just say pass. Mr. Roche, you're muted. Would you like to speak now, or are you here for another item?
I'm here for another item.
All right, thank you. Okay, Bobby Bendenzinski, you will be unmuted. You'll have 5 minutes to speak. If you're here for a later agenda item, you can just say pass.
Pass. Pass.
All right, thank you. Carrie Blanchett, you will have 5 minutes to speak unless you're here for a business agenda item later in the meeting, you can say pass.
Pass here for a later agenda item.
All right, thank you. Matt Rudroff, you're going to be unmuted. You'll have 5 minutes to speak. You can say pass if you're here for a later agenda item. Matt Rudroff, you're unmuted. Okay, I will mute you. Going to unmute M. Sorth at me.com. You have 5 minutes to speak. If you're here for a later agenda item, you can say pass.
I'll pass, thank you.
Nate Watson, I'm going to unmute you. You have 5 minutes to speak. If you're here for a later agenda item, you can say pass.
Pass.
Sean Wall, you have 5 minutes to speak. I'm going to unmute you. If you'd like to speak on the later agenda item, you can say pass.
Thank you. I'm here for a later agenda item. Pass.
Okay. Last one, Stefan Hayduck, you're going to be unmuted for 5 minutes. If you'd like to speak. If you're here for a later agenda item, you can. Stephen Hayduck, you're unmuted. Okay. All right, that's everybody, Peter.
Okay, thank you. So we will close the public comment section of our meeting. And is there any communications from staff? Seeing none, we'll move on. So the way this is going to work, we're going to allow, thank you for the respondents for participating in our RFP. We are going to allow each firm an opportunity to make their presentation. If board members could keep their comments until after every firm has had an opportunity to make their presentation, then we can go back and revisit if there are specific questions of any individual firm. So with that, Heather, you could certainly take them in the order in which they appear on our agenda, and each firm will have an opportunity to discuss the board.
Peter, Luke Hackney has a hand up. He has a question.
I'm sorry, Luke, I didn't see you. Go ahead.
You're okay. Actually, I was just trying to interject for staff. Kristen Clark contacted me, and she has been unable to locate the link for this meeting. I didn't know if somebody could help her with that.
Sure. Adam, can you resend that to her? Or if you can, I can, and you can, you want to read through the attendee list?
I just sent it to Kristen. Resend it.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
So hopefully Kristen will be joining us momentarily. So Heather, if you could go ahead in the order in which the firms are on our agenda. And yes, Michael?
I'm going to make a motion to recuse Greg Ballline.
Support.
Greg, you can't recuse yourself, so I will second Michael's motion to recuse Greg Ballline. And
Guys, if I may, I don't think it's entirely necessary in this case, but you know, the DDA and everything that we do, it's just really important that we don't have conflicts of interest. So with that, I will be stepping out of the meeting.
Sure.
Okay.
So all those in favor in recusing Greg, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, people.
Any opposed? Thank you, Greg. We'll invite you back in. All right, Heather, if we can try again to allow each respondent to have an opportunity to address the Brownfield Authority.
Okay. Going to unmute Stephen. And Robert.
Thank you and good afternoon. I'm Bobby Benzinski, and along with me is Stephen Hayduck. We represent Benzinski and Company Municipal Finance Advisors, and our firm has been providing independent municipal advice to municipalities since 1976. We have an extensive amount of Downtown Development Authority, Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, bond issues that we've acted as municipal advisor on. One that is very similar to this is the Troy Somerset Shopping Mall. We have worked on behalf of the city of Troy, negotiated a development agreement along with a financing agreement for the development of the parking mall there behind Somerset, if you're familiar with that. We reviewed the proposal, and from the information gathered, we believe that our role here is purely an advisory role. We would be acting as fiduciary to the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority in securing a refinancing for this project. It is our understanding that the developer is working with Robert W. Baird, and that due to the fact that this is a parking structure and the type of financing, we believe that this type of financing should be completed with a private placement, so that we would recommend the hiring of a placement agent to go out and secure the financing for this, which is why how we developed our fee and what we believe the role is. We would have a fiduciary role to the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. We would assist in preparing any marketing material that the private placement agent would require or want. We would assist in explaining the various options and reviewing whether or not this could get municipal bond insurance, whether it should be rated or not, assisting in making sure that the revenue stream would be sufficient to meet the debt service on the bonds. If there is a rating, we would assist the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority in preparing for that rating meeting or that rating call with the rating agencies, and working through any questions or questions and answers that the rating agency may have. When the bonds are sold, our role would be to determine if this is a market rate that is being presented and make a recommendation to the Brownfield Authority as to whether to accept or reject the interest rate that has been submitted. After that, we will assist with closing and preparing any closing documents and assisting in with the underwriter or the placement agent to secure that the bonds are successfully delivered. I think you can see that we most recently have worked with the city of Bay City on their Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. So that is pretty much our presentation. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer.
Thank you. We will, and again, if board members will just take notes, if there are questions that you have of this specific firm, we will come back and revisit those questions. Thank you for your presentation this morning. And Heather, can you move on to the next firm?
Yes. Mr. McGuire, you are unmuted.
Good afternoon. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Was there anybody else that was joining you on this call that I need to unmute, or were you the only one?
Yes, my colleague Mike Sorth is also on the call.
Okay.
I was probably doing most of the speaking, but it might be helpful to have him unmuted as well.
Good morning.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for this opportunity to address the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority of the City of East Lansing. We appreciate this opportunity and are really excited. We think that this would be a fun project to work on. Mike and I have been talking about this since we prepared the RFP. And I'm happy today to be here presenting on behalf of Hilltop Securities. Again, my name is Ben McGuire. I'm actually based in our East Lansing office. Our office is located just downtown in University Place. And I can look out on the project from my window right here. Have been following it across the years. And, again, would be very excited to be part of the team working to address the BRA's current financing needs related to that project. Hilltop Securities specializes in municipal finance. We're a leading national firm. We're headquartered out of Dallas, Texas. Mike is actually based out of St. Louis. And while I would be the primary and lead day-to-day contact, Mike would also be involved, as would be other colleagues, on an as-needed basis to support the BRA's transaction and to call in the necessary resources. Another name that you might hear would be Lee Donner. Lee is the manager of our Midwest Advisory Group and would help to ensure that all the necessary resources of the firm are available to ensure the successful execution of any transaction, any work that's done on behalf of the BRA. Personally, I've been in the public finance field for about 17 years now. 7 years of that was spent actually on the issuer side of that, working for the Michigan Department of Treasury, where I worked on numerous programs and credits, executing financing transactions for the state of Michigan and its various authorities and agencies. Many of those were complex, multi-layered transactions dealing with various revenue sources and agreements, much like the development agreement that is in place for this transaction. In addition to that experience, I've been on the investment banking side of the business for about 10 years on and off in different quantitative roles and now as lead banker. The project that the BRA is looking at is really kind of interesting. It's not your typical municipal transaction. It's what we would describe as a project finance transaction. And there is a niche market of high yield investors that definitely seek out to buy this type of paper. But again, it's different from the governmental issuers, general obligation bonds, for instance, which would include high grade ratings, maybe in the AA or AAA category, such as an issuance by the city of East Lansing, for instance. And that's one of the reasons that I've asked, and Mike and I have partnered, and Hilltop employs this team approach to ensure that we're meeting the needs of our clients, because that's who we're here to serve. And so Mike is part of our debt capital markets group, which specialize in these types of high yield project finance transactions. And Mike, with his group in debt capital markets, are constantly working on these types of projects and know the market and the investors, so they know what are typical and they know the preferences of that investor base. It's significantly different than a general, like a muni general obligation bond, again, like the city of East Lansing would issue. The revenues from this project are the sole credit or backing for any bonds, well, the current bonds that have been issued and any bonds, refunding bonds that may be issued. Many cities, municipalities in Michigan wrap their tax increment finance bonds with their general obligation pledge, thus enhancing the credit. Obviously, that is not what the BRA and the city of East Lansing have elected to do in this case. And to change course at this point in time would be a significant departure from what is currently contemplated. I think the number one thing that I can suggest is that at this point in time, I'm not here today to tell you or advise you to do anything, or tell you that I'm prepared to say, this is how you should sell the bonds. I can't even, necessarily say that moving forward with a refunding is what has to be done. I know that there are existing bond documents in a trust indenture that we've already started to review and discuss internally. There are some unique features to that, which may make it necessary to refund the bonds at this time. But those are all questions that I'm not going to assume to know the answer to today. Those, we have a process. We would come in, we would first meet with the staff and the BRA, the decision makers from that side of the table, and make sure that we, go through a thorough diligence process. Beyond that, we would talk to the city's council, bond council, and ensure that we have a good understanding of what the legal restrictions, implications might be. The process works through from there, and it is very procedural driven. That's how we approach it. So again, here today, I'm not in a position to assume or tell you what to do, but again, just want to offer our credentials. I think that the benefits to working with Hilltop Securities, again, we're a national leading public finance firm, but we've got the local presence here with myself. Mike's going to bring the expertise in these project finance, TIF financings. Another, I think, important aspect or attribute that Hilltop Securities is going to bring to the table is the fact that we are a dedicated municipal advisor. That's solely the type of work that I do. I don't do work on underwriting transactions, but we're going to, if engaged by the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, we're going to serve as the BRA's municipal advisor. That inherently requires us to act in a fiduciary role, meaning that we're going to put the BRA's needs above all else, including our own. And that will never be in doubt. Whether it's staff or a BRA board member, you're never going to ask yourself or think in the back of your mind, well, who is he representing? Who is he working for in this transaction? Myself and the entire Hilltop team is going to advocate doggedly for the BRA and ensure that we're working on behalf of the BRA to meet your objectives and your goals. And that's, again, going back to the procedural driven approach we take. That's what we're going to, learn very early on. What are your goals and objectives? And we're never going to deviate from those. And all the advice that we would provide to the BRA from that point on would be based on, again, the goals and objectives that you've stated for that project. The unique aspect, though, to Hilltop Securities, while we are going to be your municipal advisor, we're going to serve in that fiduciary role. I am a registered municipal advisor with the MSRB, as is Mike. But we also have, because of our status, the firm status as a broker dealer, we sell bonds, the firm sells bonds to investors. So again, that gives us that expertise. We're selling and involved in the sale of bonds, in excess of 20 transactions per week for over $1 billion of value of loan or bonds. And that gives us firsthand experience. Our firm is putting its capital to work every single day in the markets. And again, in particular in this high yield project finance market, which is going to give that direct activity in that market gives the BRA as our client that unobstructed insight into that market. You're going to know what investors want, what investors need, because we're going to be able to provide that. And again, that's a unique or a distinct feature that we have. If there are any questions, I think that those are going to wait until the end, but that would conclude my remarks and my presentation related to Hilltop Securities. But again, appreciate the time, and I would really look forward to working on this project.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation this afternoon. We will have board members circle back if they have follow-up questions.
Of
And
course, thank you.
thank you. Heather, if you could move on to the next firm. And if you could just note what firm that is so board members can be aware if they have follow-up questions.
Okay, Bill Roche with Northland Securities. You're unmuted.
Okay, great. I'll try to stay within the 5-minute limit here. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about this project. Once again, my name is Bill Roche with Northland Securities. I'm new to Northland, but not new to the business here in Michigan. I've been doing it for 39 years. And I'll be working with my partner, Mike Gormley. Mike has 31 years experience in the business. Once again, if we were serving as your financial advisor, we would provide all the same services that all the other firms would provide. But to give you a little bit of background on myself personally and Mike and I's experience in tax increment financing, we worked on what I believe to be the first tax increment revenue bond that was done without a GO pledge for the city of Taylor back in the early 90s. And because of the diligence that we did, the cash flow analysis and prep, we presented the credit to the rating agencies and ended up getting an investment grade credit on the bond issue that was actually higher than the city's limited tax full faith and credit. So we were able to get the bond sold for Taylor based on the tax increment revenues alone without encumbering the city's general obligation pledge. And once again, had a rating on the bonds that was higher than the city's GO rating. It's a little early in the process. You notice we did not include an analysis of a refunding and what potential savings would be on this project, because as the other municipal advisors have indicated, it's a different credit. We have to get deep into the weeds in regards to the tax increment analysis, what the tax base is, and how those revenues are going to be projected to grow versus the original projection. So we sort of have to get deep into the numbers to get an idea as to whether this could qualify for a rating on its own, investment grade or non-investment grade, and then make a recommendation to the Brownfield Authority as to whether or not you should attempt to pursue a rating on the transaction, or if we should just sell it non-rated publicly or privately placement. A lot of that will be based on feedback from our trading desk. As our one predecessor said, Hilltop Securities, they are a broker dealer. Northland Securities is also a broker dealer, and we do municipal advisory work. If we're working with you as your municipal advisor, we have the same responsibility as any other municipal advisor to you, and you wouldn't be impacted by the broker dealer side. The only difference is that we are also talking to investors every day about credits, what they're buying, what they're not buying, what the interest rate levels are. As an example, I'm working with a charter school right now to do a refinancing, but before we get too far down the road, we're actually in contact with potential buyers on the transaction to confirm the interest levels that we would need in order to go ahead. So because we have that behind us, we're able to get you, we believe, good feedback on the transaction in order to make that recommendation. How should you pursue it, whether it would be investment grade, non-investment grade, or private placement. As some of an example, if you would, of unique structures that we've brought in on other tax increment projects. City of Battle Creek DDA, we've been working with the City of Battle Creek for over 34 years. They had some outstanding bonds, and a number of years ago, Keebler was relocated to downtown Battle Creek, their headquarters. But in order to do that, they had to provide tax breaks to them, which severely impacted the DDA's tax revenues. and caused shortfalls. Working with the city and the DDA, we were able to restructure their debt around the existing and then the proposed tax increment revenues so that the city did not have to go out of pocket to cover shortfalls. It was a fairly large restructuring. It involved tax credits from the Michigan Economic Growth Authority and the governor's office to bring this project in. We were able to get it done and get the issue refinanced and not impact the city's general fund budget. And we're able to get that taken care of. So in short, I'm coming close to the end of my 5 minutes. I've worked with the city of East Lansing in the past, back in the 80s and 90s when Gary Murphy was your finance director, did a lot of financings for your parking structures downtown as your municipal advisor, and would appreciate the opportunity to work with you on this project. I think it'll be a very interesting project to work on. And that's my 5 minutes.
Thank you very much.
Chair,
And again, yes, I can't see who's asking a question.
this is Mayor Stevens.
Yeah, Mayor Stevens.
As I told board members before, unfortunately, I have to step out at 2 p.m. Given that we had the Mayor Pro Tem as watching both meetings and ready to sub in. So I designate my seat to the Mayor Pro Tem.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Stevens, and welcome, Mayor Pro Tem Jesse Gregg. If Heather, you can move on to our last respondent.
Would you like me to start off?
Yes, they're all set. You're unmuted.
Okay. My name is Carrie Blanchett. I am the managing director for PFM Financial Advisors. I have with me this afternoon Nate Watson from our, I'm managing director of the Ann Arbor office of PFM. We have Nate Watson, director, who would be the project manager if we were working with the Development Authority. Sean Wall, who's a senior managing consultant and would be the in charge of the technical analysis, and also Matt Ridruff from our pricing group, who has expertise in pricing, debt, and high yield. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to present our credentials to the Brownfield Authority. PFM is a national financial advisory firm. We are the leading financial advisor in the country. We do more financings of all different types, including a lot of development financing and tax increment financing here in Michigan, Brownfield Development Authority financing. The team that would be mainly supporting the authority is based out of our Ann Arbor office, where we have 9 registered municipal advisors and 15 financial advisory staff, which is the largest advisory staff in the state of Michigan. Together, we represent, just out of our Michigan office, over 170 years of experience in assisting municipal entities in Michigan on financings. We have 40 locations throughout the country, and we employ 564 people. 143 of those are just dedicated financial advisory professionals. And I bring that up because we have some individuals that have very specific expertise in economic development and doing these development agreements, in financing and refinancing the development agreements. They're not standard. They're very complicated. And what we find is it takes a lot of time and effort to really get it right and to make sure our clients are getting the best deal and the lowest cost. We have a great deal of depth and breadth of knowledge and experience, both within Michigan and nationally. Some of the projects we finance for brownfields throughout the state, and one of which is a brownfield financing for the city of Holland for a parking structure for a development. We're right now in the process of working with the city of Monroe on the redevelopment for the old Lazy Boy headquarters site. And I'm not going to sit here and sort of go through all the brownfield experience because there's a tremendous amount of it, from various entities throughout the state, including City of Ann Arbor. We have unrivaled quantitative and pricing expertise, which we're going to get to in a minute. And we believe that our independence is extremely important. We represent only you. Your best interest is, the most important thing to us. We're not a broker. We don't sell or trade bonds. Our interest is only to you, and we have a fiduciary responsibility to always do what's in your best interest. Not with us today is Dr. Hank Fishkind, who has a tremendous amount of experience in economic development. He had another meeting for this time, so he couldn't join us, but he would be part of the core team should we be successful in getting to work with the authority. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Nate Watson, who is going to speak more to our role and our approach for the financing for the authority.
Perfect. Thanks, Carrie. And I don't want to take up too much of the board's time. I think our RFP really laid out how we're uniquely prepared to cut this many different ways, analyze it, look at low costs, look at certain implications of how the indenture might need to be rewritten in order to provide the security that's necessary to possibly get a underlying rating, and also indenture requirements that the authority can live with. PFM, as Carrie mentioned, we do a lot of Michigan municipal transactions, which is represented very well in just our transactions since 2019 in Michigan. I think it was like 3.5 pages in our RFP. That, along with our quant scales, just in terms of building out what those captured revenues look like going forward. I know that the authority was kind enough to provide us with the current 2020 of about 1.5 million in captured. But then, we would go to work and looking at what millages it's subject to, renewal dates, slice and dice this many, many different ways to come up with some sort of strong stress test factor. We'd look at, how do we split exactly the taxable and the tax exempt portion, as it sounds like there will be two transactions here to work with. Depending on what the developer's involvement is, it does sound like they bring a team to the table. However, we're here solely to represent the authority, and that's the only interest we would have in mind when slicing and dicing and presenting all the different options. I think it was well laid out, given the unique situation of this project, with it being a refunding of the 17 debt. Project is now complete. It looks like the captured value has come in very nicely. Many different options, and when it comes with the many different options, it's going to take a lot of time to lay those out. However, we have that time and we have the expertise to clearly lay out the pros and cons in order to find the best solution for the authority. Another great thing that we have at our disposal when we're looking at private versus public is we have our own dedicated pricing group. And given post-COVID, or at least the initial impacts of COVID, the high yield space looks different. And that's why we brought Matt into this conversation. So Matt, if I could turn it over to you kind of briefly, to give us our views of the space. Matt, are you there?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, there we go. Thanks, Nate. Thanks, Carrie. Yeah, as I said, I'm part of the pricing group at PFM. It's a group that PFM is able to offer to all of our clients across the nation. You know, market-wise, we participate in every market, including the higher yielding market. I deal with every single desk out there on the underwriting side, pretty much as well as every underwriter on those desks out there. So we know the different personalities and the nuances to each. I don't trade bonds. Like, I don't hold positions. It gives me a bit of an unbiased look out there. So I don't necessarily look at what investors are saying, but we do have the technical resource to see what is actually happening versus what they're saying out there. We have Bloomberg. We have all the necessary resources to do that. Post-intra-COVID, you know, look, the higher yielding has been the area which you would expect that it's taken a little longer to thaw than your AAA rated area. You know, I'd say it stayed pretty frozen up through the end of May, and then early June, you saw a breakthrough. We had BBB transactions out there in the healthcare space that all of a sudden, where it was hard to clear, you had investors starting to participate and spreads started going down. So it was great to see. The longer this has gone on, and the longer we've gotten into this, you know, it's delved even further down. So I had a BB healthcare deal last week, for example, and today, of all spaces out there, an unrated student housing deal that was able to clear. So you are starting to see that breakthrough more and more, which is just great to see as investors are becoming more and more accepting of our environment here. And, you know, quite frankly, they're starting to want some yield with yields going down so low. So you're seeing more and more people hop back in here. So as we work through these ever-changing markets, my group's job is to make sure you get the best price you can on your bonds. Within this sector, there's a lot of gray out there. There's a lot of price discovery, as the desk will describe it, and that's true. Every credit is unique, and as a result, the prices you can sell these at they're kind of all over the place when you look at that. So my job is to cut through that gray. The way I see it, every basis point that I can save you on your yield, if the bonds were to go public or private, that's really money saved there, and we take that really serious, and that's what my group has to offer for it.
Perfect. Thank you, Matt. And really, that change in 1 basis point on a $26 million deal going out 30 years, that is over $30,000. So it is very significant dollars that we're talking about. It's a very intriguing process with you know, a lot of options. I think based on the team that we brought to the authority today, it shows our dedication and the knowledge that we have to provide, you know, the pros and cons of each and finding the right solution for this refunding. With that, Carrie, any closing remarks?
No, I think we would be pleased to work with the authority. I think, as you can tell, we bring a very experienced team that is really dedicated to putting in the time and effort to get you the best transaction at the lowest cost, at the terms that are most advantageous to you. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Heather, we can put our guests and respondents into not a participant role. What is the terminology?
They are already attendees. I just need to call again.
Yeah. Okay.
They're able to hear the conversation but not speak.
Okay. So I will open it up to board members. Are there any specific questions that any individual board member has of one of the firms that made a presentation to us? And I don't see.
I think James has his hand. James has his hand raised.
Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Also interested in staff's viewpoint eventually, of course. I wonder if we can run through each firm again with them commenting on their fee structure and the appropriateness of it and how it's developed.
So that's a great question, Jim. Why don't we go through each in the order in which they presented Jim's question if they could respond to that.
Looks like Tom has this question.
Tom Fehrenbach?
Yes, I think it would also be prudent to ask if they would be willing to negotiate the fee structure as well.
Okay, thank you, Tom. So can we go back in the same order, Heather, and ask the respondents to respond to those questions?
Yes. Mr. McGuire, you're going to be unmuted. Can you answer for the answering of the question to the board?
Thank you. Yes. As it relates to Hilltop's fee, and as was stated in our proposal and the response to the RFP, we are absolutely willing to negotiate. In fact, I think that I indicated in our proposal that the fee that was included in there was indicative, that obviously the scope and the exact nature of the transaction is yet to be determined. So while we did provide a, I'll call it a fee estimate for a refunding transaction, it's just based on the information that we have at this time. But in fact, I think that it would be most appropriate for us to negotiate a fee once a better idea of the full scope and nature of the transaction is determined. In addition to, kind of your more standard transactional fee, we also indicated a willingness, if appropriate, to utilize other fee arrangements, including, hourly consulting work, if that would be beneficial or advantageous to the Brownfield Authority, at least initially, perhaps. We can work on a retainer basis. We're flexible in terms of how we structure our fees, and that, again, can all be negotiated. And our bottom line is that we want to have find a fee, negotiate and agree to a fee that is, fair compensation for both the Brownfield Authority and for Hilltop Securities.
Thank you, Mr. McGuire. Heather, I think the first firm.
Yes. Yeah.
was
Sorry
out of
about that.
order there. That's okay. If they could be posed the same question that's been provided by Mr. Kroom and Tom Fehrenbach.
Hello, Bobby Benzinski here. In reviewing the information that was provided and the information that was available on your website, as I indicated earlier, we believe that our role is pretty much advisory role here, given that this is a refinancing of an existing parking structure that was worked out with a developer, and a developer agreement has been in place. So we believe that our fee represents the advisory services that would have to be provided in this. And it is unlike a typical bond issue where you're starting from the very beginning and working to the end. The refinancing is a much different transaction. So that is what our fee represents. We do not believe that our fee is negotiable. We submitted a fee in good faith, and that is our fee.
I have a follow-up question to this firm with regard to the fee structure. And you indicated you would go out serving in a fiduciary role, but go out and retain a placement agent. How are those fees or cost of the placement agent addressed? Is that part of your initial estimate and projected cost?
No, that is not part of our cost. That would be paid from bond proceeds.
Okay.
We would go out and ask broker dealer firms to act as placement agent. We would do an RFP on behalf of the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. We would put together the RFP. We would send out the RFP. We'd review the RFP and then make a recommendation to the board.
Okay. So those potential costs would be in addition to.
Correct.
Okay,
But again, we would serve as a
That-
fiduciary like all the others, and our interests are those of your interest.
okay, thank you. Thank you.
You're
And Heather, we could go on to the next firm if they could respond to the same question.
And Peter, if they could also discuss your placement agent issue, each of the firms.
Thank you, Jim.
Mr. Roche, Mr. Roche, did you mute yourself? Am I unable to unmute you?
This is Northland Securities.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, sorry about that. Bill Roach at the Northland Securities. Our fee is calculated based upon the type of credit and the size of the transaction. So we charge more for a revenue bond than we do for a general obligation bond. And it's so much per bond. We're estimated $1.50 per bond up to 20 million, and then $1 bond for any amount over that. I think our fee was pretty aggressive given the fact that this is going to be a complicated transaction. And once again, we presented our fee in good faith, and we would stick with that. I wouldn't want to make adjustments on that because then it's unfair to our other customers who we are charging basically a similar fee. So, we have one fee structure that we try to stick to and make it order fair and competitive for all the customers we deal with. As you had questioned, if you end up doing a publicly offered or a private placement, your cost of issuance for a placement agent or an underwriter are going to be over and above your financial advisory fees, just like your bond counsel fees are not included. So all the fees for your cost of issuance for rating, if you had one, your bond attorney, the underwriter's discount or placement agent fee, all of those are going to be separate from your financial advisory fee. This only covers our services as your financial advisor.
Okay, thank you. And now, Heather, the final firm, PFM Financial Advisors, same question.
Well, first, I do agree with what the prior, the other respondents indicated on the other fees, whether it be an underwriting fee for a public issue or a direct placement. That fee, along with the other cost issuance, would come out of the bond proceeds. So, regardless of who you choose, that would be the case. As far as our fee, I mean, clearly you can see the summary. Our fee is, substantially higher than some of the other fees. And we believe that fee is justified because we bring a lot more to the table for the authority. And we really spent a lot of time thinking about that fee and what we believe would be needed. We don't believe this is sort of a done deal and a simple refunding. What we are contemplating is really looking at how to best structure this and if there's things that could be done to make this financing better for the authority. However, in instances like this, if we got to a point where it wasn't as much time as we anticipated, we certainly would be willing to entertain a reduction to that fee. But again, we're bringing a little bit more to bear for the authority. And for each of those, just simple 1 basis point reduction in fees, if you get a 5 basis point reduction in fee, that's $150,000. And as I know Matt will note too, on these high yield financings, the interest rate swings are much greater than 5 basis points. So when these investors come to the table, they're dealing with us on, hundreds of issues throughout the country every day. So yes, some negotiation, but we certainly could not go anywhere near the low bids that were received. We just don't think that we could provide the proper service and we wouldn't do that. If we're engaged with a client, we are fully engaged, and we want to make sure we're spending the right time to get you the best execution. So
Thank you. Thank you. Any additional questions of board members of the firms that have presented? I'd like to go back to Northland Securities. I have a question for them. If you could allow Mr. Roach to participate again, Heather. My question, he referenced that he had done work previously with the city of East Lansing. I'd like him to elaborate on that.
I'm back on, I hope. Yeah,
Mr.
I worked with the city.
Go ahead.
Muted? Okay, yeah, I worked with the city and as your financial advisor back in the late 80s and early 1990s on a number of financing projects. Gary Murphy was the finance director back then, so we were involved in handling your rating agency presentations, doing the analysis for a lot of the parking revenue bonds and GOs that were utilized to build and renovate your structures down.
And can you...
A while that I've worked with you, but
for some reason, Mr. Roach, you're cutting out. Is Mr. Roach still?
It shows him still on, and it shows him unmuted, but I think he's having, I think his phone.
It looks like connectivity issues.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your response, Mr. Roach. Unfortunately, I couldn't hear portions of it, but that may be a technical problem somewhere. Are there any other questions that board members might have? Okay. Not seeing any additional comments or questions. Let's turn it back onto the Brownfield Authority to have a deliberation and conversation about what the responses are that we've received. Michael?
Yeah, I just have a question. Has the staff done any checking of references, or have they had any conversations as to what their recommendations may or may not be?
No, we haven't done any checking of references. I was actually going to propose that maybe today, if we could narrow it down to 2 respondents, then I would recommend that staff check those references, negotiate fees, and come back with a recommendation at the next meeting.
When would that be?
Heather, do you have that in front of you?
September 24th is the next Brownfield meeting.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is that enough time to get this figured out before the end of the year and we potentially run into issues come December?
Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think we've got time. We're all on it right now. If we can do this privately, I don't necessarily want to have I feel like we're in a fraternity and we're trying to determine who's coming into as a pledge and we're throwing against the wall. I'd rather not have them on the phone. If we can go into a bit of a private session, we can tackle this now, and then we can use the next couple months to get them spun up.
Yeah, the respondents have been, they're no longer part of the meeting. It is now just the Brownfield Authority having a conversation. Is that correct, Heather?
No, they're just muted. They're no different than a audience member at a board meeting in a conference room. So they're sitting there, they can listen, but they're not participating at this moment because they're muted.
Okay. So, and Jeff, your recommendation is to do what?
You know, my preference would be to politely ask them to hop off. We can't really have a private conversation. I don't know if that's even possible, but you know, my thought is we need to be able to talk freely about this, and I hope that we can do that here among our board members. But you know, I've got my thoughts, and I'm hoping we can. I do think we can get this resolved while we're on this, and not have to wait until September, because I do think we're going to run into a situation where we're going to start running the risk of having the rates tip back up, or running into some timeline issues.
Peter, may I?
Yeah.
I would just remind Jeff that any DDA meeting we've ever had, they've just been sitting in the corner the entire time. This would be no different than that. They have.
That's fine.
Yeah. And
Well,
also, we might need them for a question, a random question, at least maybe one representative for each. But to me, this is no different than Harbor Bay sitting in 3-hour meetings for a 5-minute speech. So
it might be helpful as far as our discussion for board members to rank the respondents based upon what our needs are, what they've provided to us, their presentations, and then from there we can make a determination if we're ready to move forward as far as responding to selecting a firm. George, do you have some thoughts on that?
I was just hoping for a staff recommendation of ranking based on their expertise that we could just then consider and at least be able to vote on. I mean, between the firms, I mean, I'm sure they're all qualified firms, but who do we think is the most qualified for us based on fees and experience and all that? I would just, if we could just get staff to rank them for us and give us a recommendation, that might be helpful for the whole group based on their expertise, right?
And George, I wouldn't limit it to just 2 firms. I would have them have staff look at all 4. All 4 bring very good strengths to the table. So
however they want to do it, but just ask for a ranking from staff of a recommendation. I mean, frequently staff come with recommendations for a firm or rank order firms or something of that nature. So they're used to doing this all the time. I mean, that'd be part of their job, is to say, what do you know, as sort of the experts who look at this stuff, who do you think we should go with? I'd prefer that. But
is there an established set of criteria for making the selection? Like, I mean, just experience, proximity, location, timeliness, availability, cost.
I would just leave that to them, but if people want to make those criteria.
And someone mentioned in there that the difference between a broker dealer and a non-broker dealer should be of concern or importance to us. I'm interested to hear a little bit more about that.
That's a great point, Kristen. I don't remember which firm made that comment. I looked at staff. Do you recall the firm that made that comment?
I think it was Northland Securities.
Okay. Kristen, would you like to have them elaborate on that a little further?
Well, Tom has his hand raised, so maybe he can answer that and has some.
And it was Northland, you are correct.
Go ahead, Tom. You're muted.
Sorry about that. I'm actually raising my hand on the previous comment, and just wanted to make sure that you knew our understanding was that you did not want staff to provide a recommendation. We're certainly happy to do so. And if you'd like to direct us to do that, I think you could also schedule, for instance, a special meeting so you could have our recommendation quicker than the 24th. we would do our due diligence and reach out to references and the firms and attempt to negotiate what we thought was a fair fee structure and pricing, and could return to the board with a recommendation.
Go ahead, George.
How long could that be, a week from now, or is that too soon? I know that's a quick time. I'm just trying to think. I know everyone wants to try to move quickly to get this firm in to what people said about moving. I don't want to put too much pressure, but what do you think you can do on that?
I think realistically 2 weeks. I'm not mute. Just because the nature of prepping the meeting and getting the agenda set and all that. I think that's a realistic time frame.
I would support coming back in 2 weeks with a staff recommendation, rank ordering them for us, and even making a number one recommendation, because I think that would be. I mean, I would like to see that, but I'm only one person.
I based upon the materials that have been presented and the responses today, all of them have certain skill sets, bring certain value and contributions that they could make to East Lansing. In my own mind, I have gone through and kind of tentatively ranked them in an order in which I feel they would be most responsive to why we're going out and retaining a financial firm. But I do like the idea of certainly having the follow-up and references. That is key, I believe. So is there any objection to following up with George's recommendation on revisiting this in 2 weeks with a staff recommendation as far as a ranking? And then if there are additional questions that board members have, to get those to staff as far as trying to follow up in helping to make that evaluation. Is there support for that?
I'm definitely in support of that.
Okay. Any other comments?
I support that, Peter.
All right, Jim, thank you.
Do you want a motion or?
Yeah, why don't we go ahead and make a motion, George? You can offer the motion.
I make a motion that we have a staff recommendation, rank ordering the firms with coming back in 2 weeks with that recommendation for us to make a decision.
I'll second your motion. Any further conversation? All those in support of the motion say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, so we made a motion to have staff follow up and provide recommendations, do reference background analysis, and come forward in 2 weeks. What date can we schedule a meeting, or do you want to do a doodle poll?
Can we do a Thursday so it stays consistent, or is that doesn't work for us, Tom?
Tom?
I'm just looking at that week. We do have the public policy and market development meeting on Wednesday. We certainly have some staffing challenges, but we can, so it's probably best that we schedule a doodle poll.
Okay.
Would that be your preference, Heather, as well?
Yes.
Yeah, why don't we go ahead with a doodle poll? That seems to work best as far as everyone being able to zero in on a time that works on their calendar. So why don't we do that? Okay.
Great.
I guess there's any additional business before us. I will make a motion to adjourn.
Or
It's been supported by Luke. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. The meeting's adjourned, everyone.